18 new positions have been added to keeper. 2 of them are triple position players, and especially our forward lines have all been given a boost as we look at the round 6 position changes for keeper. Hey, it's MJ from the coaches panel. Thanks so much for tuning in for another position reveal at the ends of round 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18. Keeper, allow and add a bunch of new positions into the game. You do need to be playing at least 3 of the previous 5 games in this position and hit at least a 50% threshold in that position. A lot of changes hit the game at the round 3, and some even more have landed in this one. So who's picked it up and what does it mean for our keeper sides, our dynasty sides, and our single season sides on the keeper platform? Hey, let's jump straight into the new defenders, bringing them up on the screen now if you're watching them on YouTube. We have 4 new general defenders and 1 key position defender. Depending on the way you set your league up, defenders are defenders. Sometimes others need those key positions in there. Joel Hamling has picked up defender status to go alongside his forward status. The Saint, Angus Hastie, is also a defender. Caleb Windsor, probably the biggest defender gain that we've got, alongside Baker and Giath. Those are the defensive gains that we've landed. Caleb Windsor is the really big name. I know Giath has popped some scores at times over his career, so has Baker. But Windsor feels like the one that we've now seen over a 12-month period pop those 80s and 90s. And to get that in that defensive line means he moves from somebody that in keeper and dynasty leagues is bench and in your squad depth only, to at least being a consideration to sit as a bench option in your defense, if not actually be on field. While for Shiva leagues, that's a pretty handy one that you might be able to just go in. Probably wasn't picked up in a bunch of different of those Shiva leagues. You might be able to jump in, sneak him in there. Of course, he, like all of the other players listed through this, you are now going to have to put a waiver claim on. So if they are in the player pool, they're locked now, and your waiver positioning is ultimately going to decide it. So to me, Windsor's the defender win here. If I could get my hands on him, I would. I think the way Melbourne move the ball at times can be really favourable for him, and we've seen that he's playing one of the distribution spaces off half-back for Melbourne. I like this as a play. I think this is a great addition from keeper, and I think he, of all the defender gains that we've got, is probably the most critical and the most likely to be someone that's going to give us fieldable scores more consistently than not. Let's talk about the new midfielders that are adding to the game. And of course, adding midfield status normally is a bit meh, but it does add squad flexibility, especially if you're playing a dynasty league, where for some leagues and hardcore coaches, I've been in one of these, where the player pool is deactivated during the year and it is squad depth alone that has got to get you through. Well, this is where the midfield can help. All of a sudden, you're not delisting a guy that's a week or 2 away from coming back from injury or sitting in a suspension, and you want to keep your squad intact, but you know you've got to fill something on field in the mids. This is a little bit easier to navigate. Let me tell you who they are. There's one pretty important gaining midfield status. Connor Buderick is now defender mid. We've got Lockie Weller adding defender mid. We've got Corey Warner, who's currently a forward, adding forward mid, so mid forward. And then one of our 2 new triple position players, Nick Martin, already been awarded forward status by keeper at the round 3 positional changes. And he was borderline to pick up midfield status last time round, but his time on the wing has increased even more. So you can now get him as a defender, as a forward, and now a mid. Probably one of the centrally most critical gains that we're going to get. He's rocking that 90s average and ascending fast with back-to-back tons off the last couple of weeks, and probably going to continue on. If he's got that license to roam from the wing, but then be the playmaker off half back for them and drift back, even taking kick-ins, and still push forward as a high half forward and impact the score, it does feel like the coaching staff have unlocked the best way to use Martin, which is let him be the guy that once the ball gets to defensive 30, defensive 40 from a kick in. He's the target and he's the guy that will get them through to the center wing, right through to the center of the ground, and then still available to push up and bring the ball inside forward 50 is probably one of the most critical players in their team alongside Zach Merritt for a structure and ball movement. This is a great gain for coaches that, again, it's clearly the forward status that's been the big win 3 weeks ago. Handy enough, obviously, as a defender too, but just having that mid, I think that might just bail a couple of coaches out that go, oh, I've actually got a forward that I like that I can grab from, a plug and play fixture. I can put that forward on. It's better than my last mid on field. I can wave him through there. It just adds another tactical layer. I think it's a great thing and fantastic that keeper have added triple position players. We wouldn't see players like Nick Martin or previously a Caleb Daniel or a Ryan Marich get it, despite them playing in this new position. They just wouldn't have got it. So I love that this has landed from the guys at keeper. And then, of course, probably outside the defensive line, the area we're most excited about, who might gain are the forwards. And let me tell you, there's some handy names that have picked up forward status. Definitely going to shake up a couple of leagues for sure. Let's put them up on the board. Who are our brand new forwards? Kicks off with Jordan De Goey. He's a huge gain for us. Levi Ashcroft, Tom Cochrane, Will Graham, Jack Ross, James Peatling, another big gain for us. Sam Flanders becomes the second triple position player that I spoke about. He is now also forward. Well, if you are playing with a key position allocation in mind, we're also going to be able to add in James O'Donnell and Lewis Young into that mix. There's probably a couple of forwards we should go back and talk to. Let's talk about Jordan De Goey. Nowhere near getting the sort of centre bounce rate that we've seen historically. Clearly still building back from some injury concern. But the reality is Jordan on his day is a 90 scoring mid. And even when he sits in this forward spot, 75, 80, 85 sort of average is right within his scope. And the fact that we can get a guy that probably we were struggling to field in our midfield, if we're honest. And I know he's not had some great scores anyway this year. But now that we can put him on field, protect that weakened forward line that many coaches have if they're running 4 or 5 forwards on field, well, all of a sudden you protect that a little bit more. I really think this is a handy gain for coaches. And let's hope that if you are an owner, he can pop back into that midfield presence a little bit more readily. If he does, that's where we can see that scoring elevate. And he probably could become, depending on what you've landed in your draft, could be as high as F2, maybe an F1 if you're really struggling for options. Levi Ashcroft, it's stoked that he's gained it. I thought keeper might have given it to him the previous time around, but again, that's the beauty of it being every 3 weeks is you do get that opportunity for some additional data. He's been huge for us. The best defender kind of first-year player has been a mature ager in Bice. Other than that, it's all been Levi Ashcroft. And now that, again, we can put him on field, much like De Goey might not have been doing enough for us in our mids, maybe sitting on that bench spot, but it's absolutely been a knockout option for now. Coaches to put him on field in his first year is awesome. For keeper and dynasty owners, this is an amazing outcome because you picked him because your team was probably bottom of the ladder. You got one of the first or second picks. And so you're rebuilding, and never really do you with these first year players have confidence in your keeper and dynasty leagues that you're going to be able to field some of these guys. Yeah, I know Dacos. Yeah, I know Sheezel. We've been blessed with some kids over the last couple of years. But Ashcroft becomes this year's version of those types of players where they pick up a position and they become fieldable for you. I love this move. I think it's well warranted and absolutely a great pick. Tom Cochrane gets forward status, probably doesn't move his ownership numbers too much, but let's see where that lands. Will Graham is a valid pick. Again, probably not interested if you're an owner as a mid. Now that he's got forward status, he's not only is he rosterable, he's certainly a consideration to put on field. James Peatling. Yes, it's Peatling season, my friends. Was someone that, much like Ashcroft, I was almost had high hopes that he would pick it up at the round 3, but Keep have done the right thing here. They've awarded it to him. Despite missing last week through suspension, he's been building over the last couple of weeks. And importantly, it hasn't been building the score because he's built his time in the midfield more. It's more just built his synergy and confidence in this Crows game style. This is, not only was he fieldable, certainly over his previous 2 games in the midfield, but now that you can place him forward, this is a huge pickup for his owners. It was flagged throughout the preseason that he'd have a bit of a hybrid mid and forward role, so to see him get rewarded with that positionally is great. Where you probably picked him on draft day, you were thinking, I might have got myself an M5 and been a little underwhelmed with his first couple of weeks. Well, the good news is he's probably about to return value on investment based on what you've spent in draft capital to get him, because now he's probably going to sit, if you can go that 75 at a basement, which I do see as his basement from here on in, right up to that mid 80s. There's your F2, there's your F3, and what a great pick for a guy that was just 3 weeks ago, you were not even sure you were going to keep him on your field. Jack Ross is a handy forward gain. He should be sitting around at a couple of single season or Shiva leagues. Make sure you go and get that. Maybe even in your dynasty or keeper league, you can go and pick that up. I think he's been handy enough based on the matchups, but we want to see how that Richmond team continues to develop their kids this year, but he is at least an option. Let's be honest, O'Donnell and Young, you're not really heading there in a normal general forward line, but if you need that key position player, because they are key defender, key forward, both those guys, that could be handy if your league has that key position allocation demand for you. When you can get a guy that's a 2-in-1 like O'Donnell and Young, yeah, it could be handy enough, that's for sure. And then Sam Flanders is the last player we've got to talk about. Of all the triple position players, he's probably the one that's underperforming for us a little bit. You know, you've got Daniel, you've got Marriage, you've got Martin, and now you've got Flanders. Just not quite back to the role that saw him be so scoring favourable over the last couple of years. Doesn't have that distribution role at all. That's Noble, that's Rioli, that's Powell. There are others that have that playmaking coming off halfback, and he's not getting the volume of inside mid time that I think coaches had hoped for. That said, he becomes somebody that you probably picked as your D1, and now that he has forward status in a line that for many coaches is weak, it could potentially just add a little bit more protection and support to you there. I do like it. I think it's a warranted move from keeper. And if you can get back into that midfield mix a little bit more, if you can get a little bit more market share of ball where it's not so heavy to Anderson, Miller, if you can just increase that by a percentage or two, this could be a great landing for his owners. It's getting frustrating, I'm not going to lie, if you are an owner of Flanders, but this just adds a little bit of respite to you. It might not change his scoring anytime soon, but it might just be better than who you have on field in your last forward spot. Because again, this is what this allows for you, is maybe you've got him in your defensive line, but you've got a defender on your bench that you're like, geez, I'd love to get that 80, that 75 on field. And here you are stinking it up with a 65 in your forward line. Well, the arrival of Flanders in that forward lines means you can use that positional versatility to be able to increase your team potentially 5, 10, 15 points per game every single week, just on that one move alone. So there you go. Those are the new players that have landed in keeper. Do they help you? Is it hurting you this week in a matchup? Because now someone's about to activate something that you didn't think they could. I'd love to know, if you're watching this on YouTube, why don't you comment below and let me know who you thought is unlucky to miss out on a keeper position for this allocation, and if you were lucky enough to get one of these players in your keeper side. The good news is we'll be back with you in just 3 weeks' time with another position reveal, with another look at some players that might pick it up. Who got close? Well, there was a few. And will they get it at the end of round 9? We will wait again from the guys at keeper to see who will pick up positional status then. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. Hope you've been enjoying what the gang at keeper have done for you this year. It has been a game-changing initiative to the draft platform. We love supporting the work of keeper, and we'll be back with you in 3 weeks' time with another position reveal.